The neighborhood seemed like the perfect place for the family to move to. The small, well-kept houses and friendly neighbors made it a great place to raise their children. But as soon as they moved in, strange things began to happen. Every night, at exactly 3:03, an eerie whistling could be heard coming from the end of the street. The sound would start faint, but as it got closer, it would grow louder and louder. The family had been warned by the previous residents not to look outside when the whistling occurred, but they couldn't resist the urge to see what was making the noise. One night, the eldest child, curious and brave, decided to sneak out of the house to investigate. As they walked down the street, the whistling grew louder and louder, but they couldn't see anything. Suddenly, they felt a cold hand on their shoulder, and they heard a voice whispering in their ear,
"Don't look at me."
The child turned around and saw a figure standing in front of them, but it was unlike anything they had ever seen before. Its eyes were glowing red, and its skin was cold and clammy. The child ran back to the house, but the figure followed them, getting closer and closer. The family tried to lock the doors and windows, but the figure was too strong. It broke through the door and entered the house. The family huddled together in fear, but the figure was not there to harm them. It had come to warn them. It told them that the neighborhood was built on cursed land, and that the whistling was the spirits of the dead, warning them to leave before it was too late. But the family couldn't leave, not when their daughter's health had miraculously improved since they moved there. They soon realized that the million little blessings they had been experiencing were not blessings at all, but the result of a dark bargain made with the spirits of the dead. The spirits had allowed their daughter to live in exchange for the souls of the living. The family was trapped, unable to leave without risking their daughter's life. From that night on, the family lived in fear of the whistling, knowing that the spirits were getting closer and closer, waiting for their next victims. And as the years passed, more and more families moved into the neighborhood, unaware of the curse that hung over them. The family watched in horror as the spirits claimed one soul after another, until there were no more left to take. And so, the family was forced to live out the rest of their days in a nightmare, trapped in a neighborhood where death was always just a whistle away. As the years passed, the family grew older and their daughter, Nola, became an adult. She had never forgotten about the horrors that had occurred in their neighborhood and had always been haunted by the memory of the figure that had visited them that night. One day, Nola decided to investigate the origins of the curse that had plagued their neighborhood for so long. She spoke to the oldest residents, those who had lived there before the neighborhood was built, and she discovered that the land had once been a burial ground for a small forgotten tribe. The tribe had been brutally murdered by settlers, and their spirits had been restless ever since. Nola knew she had to put an end to the curse and free the spirits from their eternal torment. She consulted with a local shaman who told her that the only way to break the curse was to perform a ritual on the land where the tribe had been buried. The ritual was not an easy task. It required a lot of preparation and materials. Nola spent months gathering everything she needed and practicing the ritual. She spent many sleepless nights preparing herself, and her family too. Finally, the night of the ritual arrived. Nola, her family, and a few other brave souls from the neighborhood gathered at the site where the tribe had been buried. They dug up the grave and performed the ritual, which required a human sacrifice. Nola knew that she had to be the one to make the sacrifice. She knew it would bring the spirits peace and lift the curse on the neighborhood. As the ritual began, Nola felt a strange energy surrounding her. She had expected the spirits to appear, but she had not expected to be possessed by one of them. Suddenly, she was no longer in control of her own body. She was being controlled by the spirit of the tribe's leader. The spirit used Nola's body to speak to the other spirits and to the people gathered there. It explained that the sacrifice was not necessary, that it had never wanted anyone to suffer. The spirits had been angry and vengeful, but they had never wanted to harm anyone. They had only wanted to be acknowledged and respected. The spirit, using Nola's voice, apologized for the harm that had been caused and asked for forgiveness. The people gathered there were shocked, but they could see the sincerity in Nola's eyes, and they knew that the spirit was telling the truth. The spirit, using Nola's voice, apologized for the harm that had been caused and asked for forgiveness. The people gathered there were shocked, but they could see the sincerity in Nola's eyes, and they knew that the spirit was telling the truth. As Nola's ritual was coming to a close, and the spirits were thanking her for her help, suddenly, the wind started to pick up and the sky grew dark. The people gathered there started to feel uneasy and could feel a sense of unease in the air. Suddenly, the ground began to shake and a loud noise, like the sound of drums, could be heard in the distance. Everyone panicked. Some people tried to run away while others were frozen in fear. Nola, who was still weak from the possession, stood up and tried to calm the crowd. She explained that this was not the end, but the beginning of a new era where the spirits and the living would coexist in harmony. But as the noise grew louder, Nola realized that something was not right. She turned around and saw that the spirits had not left. They had been joined by others, spirits from the neighboring tribes, who had come to reclaim the land that had been taken from them. Nola knew that she had to act fast. She couldn't let the spirits harm the people or the neighborhood. She used the knowledge and power she had gained during the ritual to communicate with the spirits and explain that the land was now respected and protected, and that the people living there meant no harm. But as she was speaking, Nola suddenly collapsed, her body convulsing as she was consumed by a powerful energy. The spirits had taken her sacrifice, her life as a payment for lifting the curse. The spirits disappeared, and the noise stopped, leaving behind a stunned and heartbroken crowd. Nola's family and friends were devastated. They had lost a daughter, sister, and friend. They realized that the spirits had taken Nola as a sacrifice. Her life was the price to lift the curse and bring peace to the neighborhood. They buried her in the land where the tribe had been buried and built a small shrine to honor her sacrifice. The neighborhood was now safe and peaceful, but it would never be the same without Nola, who had sacrificed herself to ensure the safety of her community. Her death had not been in vain. It had brought an end to the curse and allowed the spirits to rest in peace. And from that day on, the people of the neighborhood honored her memory and made sure to respect the spirits and the land they had lived on. Thanks for listening in. Please like and subscribe and help support this new channel. We have more scary stories for you to listen to.